happens when you sleep? How can you improve your sleep quality? Use ShutEye to track your sleep and learn more about it from a scientific perspective. Get detailed sleep statistics and graphs for every night, and receive professional advice from experts.
It's time to know if your snoring is dangerous or just annoying. If you snore loudly and still feel tired after a full night's sleep, you might have sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is a potentially serious sleeping disorder in which your breathing repeatedly stops and starts. And yes, indeed, sleep apnea can cause you to choke to death in the middle of the night. If you're snoring, you should definitely try this ShutEye app. It tracks your entire sleep cycle, rates how you sleep, monitors when and how you snore during your sleep. It's time to understand your health now.
Well, hello, everybody. It is an absolute pleasure to be here once again to see all of our ShutEye users and some of our Ognomy friends out there. I apologize in advance for my voice. I just had a little dance with our friend COVID, so but I'm doing fine, recovered well, and luckily I focused on getting a lot of sleep, because that's probably one of the most important things you can do when you have COVID, is make sure that you listen to your body. Not only drink lots of fluids and take Paxlovid if you need it, but get plenty of rest. So again, thank you all for joining us. We're going to have a really fun time tonight, because tonight we're going to learn a little bit about home sleep testing. We've talked about home sleep tests to diagnose sleep apnea before on our little chats here, but tonight I'm going to actually do a demo. I brought one of our trusty kits. It's kind of hard to see on there, but basically it's a watch pack kit. This is the kit that we use for our home sleep test, and I'm gonna go over that with you. So for those of you who don't remember what we're measuring in sleep apnea is a sleep-related breathing problem where the throat's this tube of muscle, and as you fall asleep, that tube, like other muscles, relax, get floppy, and snore. But with sleep apnea, it gets so floppy that it actually collapses down. So when you try, the throat collapses down. So when you try to breathe through it, it's like, you can't get the air through. And your brain recognizes that, causes you to wake up and take a breath. And because when you're awake, that throat naturally opens up. So same way you can't hold your breath while you're awake, you can't hold your breath while you're asleep. So it's sort of, your brain will definitely protect you through that. But it's those repetitive episodes that give a lot of the symptoms that we've talked about before, like the daytime sleepiness, waking up with dry mouth or drool on your pillow, feeling sweaty at night, throwing your feet out from under the covers a lot, going to the bathroom frequently in the middle of the night, waking up feeling like you're short of breath. There's a whole bunch of symptoms that we've talked about in the past. So we'll go through all of those things together. So I see all of our friends saying hi and joining us. I see the chat kind of jumping in. I'll ask our co-host to try to see if we can't move the chat off the screen, but we can certainly try to do that. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and start talking to you about the sleep test. So this sleep test is ordered if the doctor that you see thinks you have a high pretest probability of having sleep apnea, and it's FDA approved. It's by a company called Itamar Medical, and they make this watch pad, and it comes in this nice package. And what you do, you just open it up. And once you open up the package, it has this really nice instruction sheet that you want to go through, because you have to download the actual app of the WatchPat 1 onto your phone. So there's a screen right here that you just take a picture of it. You download it on, and then you take out the actual apparatus, and it walks you through setting up the apparatus right on your phone. So you just follow the instructions on the phone. And this is what the actual apparatus looks like. It comes with a sensor that you put near your chest to measure motion and sound. So it measures your snoring and actual movements of your chest. There's the actual watch piece that fits around your wrist, which I'll show you. And then the true technology is in this finger probe that you stick your finger in. And this measures what's called pulse arterial tonometry, which is a way of measuring the constriction or the collapsing of the vessels in your finger. It's that fascinating. So you're used to using these finger probes to measure oxygen. You've heard of plethysmography, but this works in a little bit of a different type of technology. So the way they have you set this up, first of course it's nighttime, so you have to get into your PJs, which I'll do. Okay, now don't, no one else scream at once here. So I'm going to get in my PJs, and I wear this to bed every night, my Ognomy PJ t-shirt, right? It's getting a little yellowed because I use it that often, but no, you want to get into your nice jammies, get as comfortable as you possibly can before you put this thing on. And the first thing that you want to do is you just want to put the actual watch on. So you want to take your own watch off. So I have an Apple Watch that I wear. And you just attach it right to your wrist. And the way you attach it is you put the wristband on, and you want the finger probe side going to the finger. And then I'll show you what you do with the chest probe. So you put the watch on. It's really, really easy. They make the actual band super big and thick, so it's easy for us older folk to manipulate it. So that's on my wrist. And then you put on your finger probe, and there's a little piece on here that says top, and you pull that out, and it pulls out the plastic piece. And then it self-tightens. It actually self-inflates to give a nice snug fit. And you'll notice that it'll fit a little differently, like if you ever had one of those finger probes that measures oxygen. It's like a little clip. This is maybe a little bit tighter. And that's okay. I mean, it's not cutting off your blood supply. So you want to feel a little snug, because it uses the counter pressure to measure the pulse and to measure some of the signals that this sleep test needs to measure. So it's okay if it feels a little bit of pressure on there. And then you have the actual chest monitor, which you want to, if you're wearing a long sleeve pajama top, you just roll it underneath your sleeve. Oops, let me fix this here. It's got a twist tie on it. Probably should have taken that off before our visit tonight. And then you run the actual probe, you put it through your wrist, up in through your shirt, and then you kind of grab it. And then it actually has a little sticky right on the back there that you peel off. And then you want to put the sticky right at your sternal notch. So that's right where you'll feel your sternum begin. So you put it right below there, and then you just stick it on. And there you have it. And then right on the phone, you kind of, like I said, you walk through each step. And then right on the phone, you just basically click and say start. And then when you wake up in the morning, you turn it off and just you wear it all night. You have to make sure your phone is within 15 feet of your bed. So you want to, the best thing to do is keep your phone plugged in and just keep it right next to your bed, upside down, so none of the lights turn on. But then you can just go ahead and sleep with it. And it's just this simple part. There's nothing around your nose. There's nothing on your face. There are other units. There's another unit that we sometimes use called an apnea link air unit that does have a probe that measures airflow out of the nose and a chest belt that measures movement of the chest. It's a different technology. We also use that for sleep apnea diagnoses, but through Ognomy, you'll most likely receive this WatchPat one because it's disposable, and you don't have to send it back. And in the morning when you turn your phone off and you turn the app off, all the data is then sent from the phone into a cloud. They call it Cloud Pat. And we see the data, we review the data, and I'll show you what those data points look like. So that's it. That's as simple as that, by putting it on and wearing it through the night. And that's the test. And we collect all the data we need. And it's really a one size fits all. We don't have to fit you beforehand. We like to sometimes go over it with you if you want. Like if you get it and you're confused, you can give us a call. There's an actual 24-hour number on the instruction sheet to call if you're having any trouble, and we'll help you troubleshoot through it. But it's super simple. Patients never have trouble using it. But you do need to have a smartphone because you have to download the app for it to collect the data. And most of you on ShutEye and Ognomy use the phone for the app, so we know you have one. And the test takes just one night. Sometimes your doctor will want to do a 2-night test, but most of the doctors just request a 1-night test. So that works out nicely. And you just, again, wear it the one night and the data goes directly to your doctor. So if you do get the test and you need to see your doctor and follow up, you might want to make sure that you schedule that follow-up at least 3 or 4 days after you take the test, because it does take a little bit of time to score it and for the doctor to interpret the results. So you want to give that a little bit of time. And these tests are super accurate. I mean, we're not testing for other types of sleep disorders, but to diagnose sleep apnea, this type 3 home sleep test, which it's called by the FDA, is highly efficacious, and the validity is great. And if you come up with a negative test, sometimes the test might not be that sensitive. Your doctor will help determine whether you need more definitive testing. Like you might need a more definitive test in a sleep laboratory, for example. There might be something on there that points you to that, and then your doctor will direct you to that. We just got a message where it says, like, where can I buy the test? This test is prescribed by your physician. So you want to, just like any test, it's not really something that you can buy off the internet. It's an FDA approved prescription only test. So we would recommend if you think you have sleep apnea and you need to get it diagnosed, like we've talked to you in the past, it's really simple to download our app, see one of our practitioners, and they'll go ahead and order that test for you and get you set up if you're an appropriate candidate for it. And I'm gonna share my screen real quickly so I can show you basically what the results look like. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So I'm hoping you can see my screen here, and basically it picks up the time that you've used the device, and And it actually can pick up both non-REM sleep and REM sleep. Remember, we talked about it on some of our previous chats, the different sleep stages. This watch pad is actually pretty good at determining REM sleep, but it didn't in this particular patient, which we did about a week and a half ago. About a week ago, actually. The test was done on the 10th. So we measure the time of sleep. And then this RDI is the respiratory disturbance index, and this AHI is the apnea-hypopnea index. I don't want to confuse you too much, but these are the number of times per hour that we see the collapse of the throat. And by definition, if you have less than 5 of those per hour, that's okay. Like, it's okay to have a little bit of sleep apnea and not have clinical significance. But if you have between 5 and 15 of those per hour, that's considered mild sleep apnea. And between 15 and 30 per hour, that's moderate sleep apnea. But if you have greater than 30 per hour, that's severe sleep apnea. And this particular patient had 45 of these events per hour. And the other thing that we look at is their oxygen saturation. So their mean throughout the night was about 93%, but they actually dipped down to as low as 72% oxygen. And what that looks like is on here. So this is the oxygen. This is the beginning of the night, which was about 21:41. That's 8:30, 9:30, somewhere around there. And then this is the time they woke up, 5:24 in the morning. And then this is the oxygen saturation, the pulse rate, and the amplitude. But this is the SaO2. So the SaO2 is the oxygen saturation, and you'll see that there are these periods where the oxygen would go down and up, down and up, down and up. You'd see that again here and here. And this is a time when the patient's having sleep apnea and the oxygen's going down. We could look at the events and when they occurred and like in what position. So this particular patient had a lot more events when they were in their supine position, which means sleeping on the back, or on the right and the left side was less. So this is more of a supine positional. And then this is more of a nuanced description, which I'm not going to confuse you too much, but long story short, this patient has severe sleep apnea that's worse on his back. And that's kind of the classic type of sleep apnea. It's also oftentimes worse on, in certain sleep stages, like rapid eye movement sleep. And again, that particular test didn't pick up the rapid eye movement sleep because of the signal wasn't sensitive enough, but it usually does. And then you'll see that the apnea was more prominent during that rapid eye movement sleep. All right. So Shannon just asked, do we have to see our current physician to get the test? You don't have to. If your physician is a sleep specialist, they're able to order the test. Sometimes primary care doctors can order the test. If you want to do it in the setting of a comprehensive evaluation for your sleep, again, come to the Ognomy app. We have board certified sleep medicine doctors on the app that will see you in consultation, order the appropriate sleep test, and then order the appropriate treatment for you. So that might be the best way to approach, getting a test and getting diagnosed for sleep apnea. All right, the next question, this came from Larry. It's a little bit more of a generic question. He says, I have sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea, but I can't use my CPAP machine until I get my deviated nose septum surgery done. What do I do? Well, that's a great question. and I think what you can try to do maybe in the meantime is get a breathe right strip, because what happens with a deviated septum, it just kind of affects the passage of air through the nose. So if you're having a lot of obstruction in the nose, obviously fixing it surgically through an ear, nose, and throat doctor, that'll be helpful to you. But those breathe right strips will actually open up the nose at the level of the nares, and it'll do almost what a deviated septum surgery would do in a short-term fix. And you can wear that breathe right strip underneath the CPAP mask. So as you're waiting for that surgery, Larry, it might be you might want to give that breathe right strip a try. And if that doesn't work, we'll just have to wait for your surgery to come through and get better. And those nasal surgeries, they're kind of, they hurt at first, but they recover real quickly. So yeah, you'll do fine, I'm sure. All right, the next question from Jill. She says, I have really bad night terrors. Any advice? Yeah, so night terrors are part of what are called non-REM arousals, and it's an arousal disorder that occurs during non-REM sleep. Now, this is typically your non-dream sleep. So people who wake up with night terrors might also be prone to sleepwalking, might be prone to a lot of sleep talking, but sleepwalking, night terrors, confusional arousals, they all kind of fit this non-REM arousal disorder. And there are different techniques you can do to improve night terrors. I'm not a big fan of using medication unless it's associated with PTSD or some other associated disorder. But if it's just plain old night terrors and you're looking for some advice, really the best thing to do is kind of change your nighttime routine a little bit. Sometimes watching the news before bed or social media or getting kind of amped up before bed can induce night terrors, or even playing video games. I had one patient with really bad night terrors and sleepwalking that would play video games to kind of shoot 'em up war game type video games. And it was just that type of behavior before bed that led to the night terrors. And just by kind of changing that nighttime routine was very helpful for that. The other thing that you want to try to do is do positive visualization. And what you can do with that is that before you go to bed, just picture, unicorns and rainbows. Really try to get your mind into a really comfortable space where, like, a place that you love to be, maybe lying on a beach somewhere in a sailboat. Get your brain into a very comfortable, calm, quiet space so that that facilitation to sleep onset is conducive for a good night's sleep. I find a lot of patients with night terrors or sleepwalking, they kind of go right from playing video games, going right to bed, or watching the news, which can be horrific, and going right to bed. You want to have this period of time that you can use before bed. That's a lot more conducive for sleep onset. So I hope that will help. I think we have time for a few more questions tonight. Kim asked, what do you say to someone who wakes up during the same hour every night? I always go back to sleep quickly, but it's always between 3 and 4 a.m. Well, one of the first things you could do is stop looking at your clock. Because believe it or not, just waking up at the same time and looking at the clock, that little bit of light exposure from the back of your eye into the center of your brain actually helps reset a circadian rhythm. So if you can try to break that habit of looking at the clock, that might be one of the things that'll prevent you from doing it. But some people that wake up in that early morning hour between 3 and 4 a.m., that's when you typically go into a lot of rapid eye movement sleep. And that's also a time when you'll be more susceptible to obstructive sleep apnea. So that might be something to think about, Kim. Like if you're snoring or waking up to go to the bathroom frequently, or have like feeling warm and sweaty when you sleep, like there are other symptoms that might be associated with, the sleep apnea, that you should get it evaluated. So talk to your doctor or talk with one of the doctors on Ognomy, and they'll be able to help you overcome that. But you'll find if you stop looking at the clock in the middle of the night, you'll notice that you won't be waking up at the same time with a little bit of time. So. All right. So the next question from TheLadyfrl said, how do we manage being the partner of someone with sleep apnea? She says the CPAP is only slightly less disruptive than snoring. Well, the CPAP, it might be the way the CPAP mask is fitting, because it's a very quiet machine when it's fit correctly, and when the actual the leak signal is low. So you want to make sure that the nasal fit is okay. A lot of times patients will use these full face masks where there's a lot of seal break, and a lot of times when there's a lot of leaking and funny sounds coming from the mask. But it's a much quieter than the loud decibel of snoring, and just knowing that your bed partner is having a more restful sleep should also make you feel more rested too, TheLadyfrl. So be sure to be positive about it. Support your bed partner that's wearing a CPAP. And if it's still really problematic, there are other treatments for obstructive sleep apnea. We've talked before about the oral appliance, which is a mouth guard that can be worn for sleep apnea. We've also talked about the Inspire surgery, which is an implant for moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea, which is gaining a lot of traction. So there are other ways to address it and treat it. So if CPAP is really not for your bed partner, for you, even after a good fit, it's still really disruptive to you, then I would look into alternative treatments and talk to your doctor about those. All right, I'm gonna answer one more question here, and then we'll let you get back to your night. I don't like to take up too much of your time. You're always super fantastic, and I really enjoy speaking with you. But we have to save room for the next time for all the questions that come through, and keep your questions coming through, even on YouTube, even on the ShutEye YouTube channel. If you put your questions in there, even during the middle of the week, we collect those questions and we'll try to answer them during your chat with the sleep doctor tonight. So just like tonight. So we'll make sure we'll keep finding those questions. All right. This might be Shannon again. It could be the same Shannon. She asks, how many hours of deep sleep should an adult get each night? Well, it's more like how many total hours of sleep. The average adult requires between 7 and 8 hours to feel fully rested. And what I mean by that, it means that you want to be able to wake up feeling refreshed during the day, where your tendency to doze off isn't really super high. You're able to engage in your usual activities and do what you want to do without feeling tired, and then noticing the onset of some sleepiness in the late evening, before bedtime. That's normal. That's normal wakefulness during the day. And when you talk about deep sleep, I think you might be referring to stage N3 sleep, which is delta sleep, which should be around 20% of your night. And that decreases as you get older, what that normal amount of deep sleep should be. I know there are a lot of trackers out there, even maybe the ShutEye one too, that, kind of looks at deep sleep and light sleep. And, we kind of think of that as sort of non-REM sleep versus REM sleep. But REM sleep is actually a lighter stage of sleep, believe it or not, but it's a very important part of your sleep. So don't think of it too much as deep sleep. Think of it as your total sleep time, so you can cycle through your different stages. Because for those of you who are with us during that first lecture series that I did with you, and we talked about the physiology of sleep, remember, you cycle from non-REM sleep to REM sleep throughout the night, and you do that 4 or 5 times, where you spend the first part of the night in a lot of non-REM sleep, and then the second part of the night in more REM sleep. So you want to cycle through those stages through the night and not just have deep sleep. Okay, and our last question before we end it says, what should happen if you stayed awake for 3 days? Well, you've well, if you stayed awake for 3 days, it's time to kind of shut off your computer, shut off your phone, and go to sleep. I'm glad we're going to end on that one, but it's not good. You don't want to stay awake for that long in a row. But it's amazing what the brain will do. Like, you've heard of daydreaming, or in the medical term, the real medical term is called a micro sleep. Your brain will actually go to sleep on you when it needs to. So you definitely don't want to be driving. You don't want to be operating any heavy machinery if you haven't slept in 3 days. But lo and behold, your brain will be engaging in some sleep activity. Some of you might have noticed when you're driving, you might get sleepy and go from point A to point B and not remember doing that. You might have actually gone into some sleep there. So I always talk about this. Don't ever drive drowsy. If you're feeling drowsy while you're driving, be sure to pull off the road. And take a short nap. Be sure when you pull off the road, it's a nice, safe spot, but, make sure you do that. So with that, I want to thank you all again for joining me tonight and for joining our ShutEye team and our Ognomy team. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you about sleep, to answer your questions, and to give you some insight into sleep apnea care. So with that, I really look forward to seeing you next time, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Bye now.